Welcome back. This is our third walk around video for our February the 25th sale here at Manor Park Classics. And this is bikes. Now, as you know, my bike knowledge is not brilliant, so I've teamed up with my great mate Jimmy, whose knowledge is expansive, unlike his trousers.
Yeah.
So talk to me. I let this gentleman come through. This is how busy it is. This is live and happening. It's viewing day. Everyone's looking at the bikes.
Yeah.
The Maserati, not many people know that Maserati made bikes. We've got this beautiful pairing here. Talk to me about these two bikes.
Yeah, exactly. So these two bikes have basically come from the same collector. And we've actually got some evidence upstairs of the images of just how bad these bikes actually were.
They're fully restored?
The complete restoration, yeah. Full of rust, completely corroded, motors seized on both bikes, and yeah, needed complete restoration. So on this side you can see the T4, which is a 4-stroke. And on the other side is the T2, which is the slightly smaller 125 2-stroke version.
So which do you think would be the nicer to ride? If I was starting my Maserati bike collection, which one would you go for? Or should you buy them both together, really?
I mean, it's a pair, they belong together, don't they, really? Personally, I'm a big fan of 2-strokes.
Really?
Yeah. So I'd take the hit on the CCs and I'd get the 2-stroke one.
Does it sound better as well, do you reckon?
Yeah, of course, yeah. 2-stroke motor, yeah.
But walk us over to this. This is a very nicely arranged area you've created here in our new bike room. So talk to me about all this stuff. We've got some lovely pre-war bikes. You've got the BSA.
That's right. Yeah, so we've got the BSA B1 there.
Yeah.
And you might have seen me doing a little test ride on that.
How easy are these pre-war bikes to ride though? I mean, if you're looking at this thinking, it's a lovely thing to have in your man cave or she shed, isn't it?
That's it.
If you want a really lovely looking bike in the background. But could you use that really? Is that something that you could ride out on a Sunday?
Well, I mean, the previous owner did use it, with the Banbury runs and stuff on it.
Oh really? So it's eligible for that?
Yeah, I've took it out for a ride. And on a scale of 1 to 10 being easy to ride, it's about 3, so it's quite difficult.
But that's
a lot of fun.
Yeah. But to me, the condition of that looks lovely to me. It looks like it was restored a long time ago and it's like sat in a restoration. And
that's right.
So when was that done, do you know? I
don't know the exact year. The previous owner had it for about 15 years. And from the information we've been given, he did a lot of the restoration work on it. But it's a beautiful thing and it works really well. And believe it or not, it actually kick-started on the first kick, that one, which is quite rare.
That's amazing. Yeah, and estimate on that one?
The estimate on that one is...
Would you like me to tell you?
Well, yeah, you can.
3,500 to 4,500.
Right, okay, yeah.
Because that's the amazing thing about these bikes, and that's the reason I'm here as well, because obviously he's the expert, I'm really not.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's the people watching this that love and know bikes, and they know exactly what these are, but there's also a lot of us car guys think, you know what, I quite fancy something like that in my collection.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's just something you can just put there and polish. And also, if you have got a bike licence, it's perfect, because it's restored to a degree where it does look amazing next to your cars, but if you fancy, you can take it out for a little blast as well. And of course, it's MOT and tax exempt, so it doesn't cost you anything.
I love that. What about this 46 Royal Enfield? Tell me all about that one.
Okay, so this is a G model, produced for about 4 years, and it was sort of produced at the end of the Second World War, potentially looking at sending this overseas to be a war bike to get messages around and what have you. But obviously it was at the end of the campaign. Royal Enfield had really come on then in terms of building machines, and this was their sort of latest post-war project.
It's a handsome bike, isn't it?
It is a really good looking machine, yeah. And with it being a little bit later, it's not quite as uncomfortable to ride either, because if you look, there's no suspension on the back there.
It's a hardtail but sprung saddle.
That's it, you've just got a sprung saddle, and depending on who you are, that's not going to do much for you.
So if you're suffering from hemorrhoids, don't bid on that one, unless it's just purely for static purposes, would be my advice. An estimate on that is 3.5 to 4.5 grand. Yeah. Again, it seems like an awful lot of bike for the money to me.
It really is the same as the BSA B1 there as well. It is a lot of money for a lot of bike. And also, if you look at the sort of the standard that it's at, it's had a little bit of work done to it. It's really only going to take a couple of weekends to get that looking really good.
But again, I love, same with cars, I love older restos because they look beautiful, they kind of look lived in rather than freshly done.
That's it.
You know, it's like when you restore anything too nicely, you never use it, do you? But that just looks eminently usable to me.
Exactly, yeah. That's the compromise I like, to be honest.
Yeah. Very pretty thing. Now this is a Nottingham lad, 1924 Rally, made in Raleigh Street in Nottingham. That's immediately cool.
Yeah, and you'll know loads about this one, man.
So this is, what I can tell you from this, like all good things, it's from Nottingham. Slightly before me, 1924, this one. That is the extent of my rally knowledge.
Right, okay.
So please pick up the baton.
Okay, so Raleigh started making motorcycles in the early 20s. And
in Nottingham.
In Nottingham, that's correct, yeah.
Centre of the universe, literally.
Well put, yeah. And then 10 years later, they gave up and then went back to just motorcycles. This one, as you can see there on the tax disc, it's got a nice little piece on there. It says that the tax expired in 1929 and it cost £2 a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which people that know our business know that was the last time Jim got around it.
That's it. Yeah.
It's a true story.
I've never known it.
But that's, again, how rideable is that really? I mean, it's a beautiful artifact. I would like to own that just to put in the corner of my man cave and look at. And I love the way you've lit it.
Well, this is going to surprise you, actually, because it's completely rideable.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really?
It runs really well.
Yeah.
And the last run it did out was in 2020, and it did the Banbury run.
And we should talk about that because you, wherever we're allowed to, whenever the vendor's happy for us to, you ride all these bikes, don't you?
That's right, yeah.
So you've started all these, you've ridden all these, you know what the foibles are. So if anybody's thinking of coming to view a bike before the sale day, and I would always say, please, if you're thinking of anything, cars or bikes, come down, it's Wednesday today.
Yeah.
Have a look, come speak to Jimmy, the team, have a look.
Yeah.
Go through all the paperwork. Because a lot of these bikes have amazing histories, don't they?
Amazing history, especially the Rally, to be honest with you. Because that particular bike spent 95 years in a museum down south.
Wow, is that why it's so beautiful?
Yeah.
So how much of that would you say is either an old restoration or original?
So it looks like, from what we can gather, the bike was obviously built in 1924, had a bit of restoration work done in 1930s. It then went into a museum where it spent most of its adult life, if you like. And then the previous owner, or the current owner, shall I say, bought it, did the Banbury run on it a couple of years ago, and it's now here.
So for those who don't know, explain what the Banbury run is, because that's obviously...
So the Banbury run...
owning the right bike is your only ticket into it, isn't it, really?
Yeah, you've got to have the right bike, so it's a bike from a certain era, and it's basically a lovely little route round Oxford and that down south, and you basically see hundreds, potentially thousands of these machines get together, and they all do a little ride out and do things for charity and stuff, and it's great.
And would you say that the eligibility of that adds a little bit to the value of a bike, doesn't it? The fact
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. And the fact that it runs and it can do it.
Yeah, a usable bike. It's not just an artifact.
Yeah.
So is everything in this cell a runner and a rider? Can they all start and run pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Some of them are perhaps so rare you wouldn't want to, but...
yeah, there's a few. I think it's quite sad that people put bikes in collections, but there's a few that you might...
Hold that thought, because we're going to come to a bike later that's almost amazing because of that. Then.
That's true, yeah. Very true.
Tell us about this, the 1921 Royal Enfield.
Yeah.
So, again, a really pretty bike. So I'm learning about bikes by working with you, Jimmy. This looks very cool to me, and this looks like it's either an incredibly old restoration or original.
So it is original. It hasn't been restored, as you can see by the seat there and everything, all the worn leather.
Someone's nicked his grips.
Yeah, someone has stolen the grips. Yeah, this is actually a 225cc, and it was actually built in 1921. So it's actually a little bit older than the Rally on the stand there.
So over 100 years old. That blows my mind.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, and it still works. Yeah, so we've actually had this bike running. When we went to pick this up from the gentleman that supplied it, we kick-started it, and it started on the third kick, and it runs, and the engine's pretty sweet, actually.
That's crazy. And also what I love about this, because that would be the equivalent of a vintage car, if it's a 20s car.
Yeah.
Like the price point of vintage cars now is just a veteran of vintage is really high. We've got an estimate of this at $3.5, 4 grand.
Yeah.
So it's not huge amounts of money.
It's not huge amounts of money, no, and it's also more than sensible, because what it'd cost you, there's not a lot to these machines, and for what it'd cost you to put that right, you could potentially make a couple of quid on it as well.
And what's the market of these? Would you say leaving the beautiful patina on that and just getting it running and riding and working is where you want it to be?
Yeah, I mean, you could get it running or riding. You've got the huggers that are on the wheels that you might want to do a bit of work with, but potentially, I mean, if you look at the tank on that, that could just do with a clean-up. And
I wouldn't touch that.
It's better off left alone.
Oh, I think so. It's beautiful with the paintwork and everything on it as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Really, really stunning thing. Yeah. And this brings us to this, the 1932 Flying Squirrel. I mean, who came up with the name of Flying Squirrel?
Well, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to be in that marketing meeting.
Yeah.
Do you know what will sell this motorbike? To call it the Flying Squirrel.
Well,
it's not very manly, is it?
It's not that. Well, it depends if you like squirrels. You know.
Although this looks like quite a manly bike to ride with. You've got your tank shift here. This looks like a handful.
Well, the thing is, in 1932, if you were anyone who wanted a sports bike, you had a Flying Squirrel.
Did you?
Or potentially, or one of the
just dropped that one
bikes.
in down the pub. Just got it on mine. Flying Squirrel.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, I would like to mention this, the estimate on this is really good.
4.5 to 5.5.
4.5 to 5,500 on this. It is a complete restoration project.
Yeah.
The good thing is that the inside of the tank is completely intact. However, it's a 100% project, but it's 100% there.
But this is the thing. So I, as you know, bike novice. This is so unspeakably cool the way this is patinated. All I'd want to do with this is swap the tyres, get it running, and leave it completely. To ride it around in that condition.
And you absolutely could, yeah.
It just would blow any restoration out of the water.
Yeah.
So I mean, what would it cost to put something like that back to rideable condition, but leave all the patina? So you're swapping your brakes and tyres?
Yeah, if you were to do a part restoration to get it running effectively, get it roadworthy, you'd probably be looking at £1,000 tops. Yeah. So if you did that, you know, at the reserve that's at the estimate, there'd be a couple of quid in it for you.
Yeah.
And the thing is as well, I mean, compared to the rest of the bikes, this really is the daddy here because this is actually a 650cc motor as well.
So that's a throbbing engine for a 30s bike, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's a throbber and a half.
But we can look at this tank, Elliot. Look at beautiful. So you got your mix there as well, haven't you? Petrol and your oil mix. Which is
yeah.
Look at the detail of the paint and everything. The fact it's all original with the graphics and everything on it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And it's still got the rear storage pads on the back as well there, which are completely original. So you put your sandwiches, and your mobile phone.
It's quite nice to have that stuff there. Probably your toolkit more like, isn't it?
Probably your toolkit.
Ready for the breakdown.
I don't think you had mobile phones in 1932 anyway.
So there you go. We've gone back from the era of the 30s and 20s. We're going to go bang up to date now, 2019. Now, even I know about Kenny Roberts.
Yeah.
So even with my scant bike knowledge, I know that Kenny Roberts livery is just cool as, isn't it?
It is really cool, yeah, and it's really retro, and it's massively in keeping with what we're trying to achieve here with doing classic motorcycles.
Yeah.
And with that being such a good bike, such low mileage in that paint job, it was a no-brainer to get it in.
So that's not factory standard. It's something the factory did offer, wasn't it, that model? But that's been retro painted to a very high standard.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because if you buy one that's in a Kenny Roberts library,
they're like so much money, aren't they?
Exactly. The estimate on this one's for 7,000 to 8,000.
If that was a factory Kenny Roberts, what would that be?
It could be another 1,500 quid possibly.
Yeah, so you save yourself a few quid there, aren't you?
And it's a really low mileage bike as well. So
2,000 miles.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's almost as new.
Yeah, it's lovely. It looks like new, to be fair. It presents beautifully, that bike.
Yeah, it runs really well. A lot of fun to ride.
Now, KTM, of course, crossed over into the world of cars. So anyone that's had a crossbow, an X-bow, will know.
That's it.
But this, and everyone knows them for their crosses and motocross bikes, don't they? But this is interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, KTM made a massive breakthrough about 10 years ago into the superbike industry, especially into World Superbike and British Superbike. And this particular bike, the RC8, was a proclaimed superbike in sort of 2010 for a couple of years.
And you've kind of ridden them all. You've ridden all the quick bikes. Where do you think this is in the kind of the pecking order of what's hot and what's not? Where would you position this bike?
Well, it's Italian, so it's good looking.
Yeah, very much. Very modern, isn't it?
It is very modern. The thing that I do like about this bike is it's a 1200cc. It's a V-twin motor, which normally just screams aggression. But like a Ducati and other Italian stuff, it delivers the power impulses to the back wheel.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like sitting on an R1 and the power just hits and it's a hooligan. This is a fast bike, but it also handles well, but it's a bit of a pleasure to ride. It's quite smooth and the pickup's quite nice on it.
And in terms of rarity and scarcity, how many of these did they make? It's not a very common bike, is it?
It's not a massively common bike, no. It's not so much a rare bike, but this particular bike was stripped nut and bolt and then actually rebuilt by Michael Howarth, which is a ex-BSB rider. He lives locally and he's supplied this bike to us, and it's dead right.
It's beautiful, isn't it? I have to say, very nicely presented. That
sounds insane as well.
And needs nothing really, just ready to go.
It's good to go. It just needs some fuel and tax
and a brave rider.
And a very brave rider, yeah, that's it.
Now this is an era of bikes I particularly like look of. So getting into the 80s now, so this 83 Kawasaki. Talk to me about the history of this model, because you're talking about when I was a kid, I used to love looking at stuff like this.
Yeah.
This is a very pretty looking bike, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And the thing is, the big thing about this bike was, of course, Tom Cruise riding the turbo version in Top Gun. Of course, yeah. So for that reason, it kind of went mental. It got a lot of.
Does it take your breath away?
No, but you do, Paul.
Top Gun jokes there. Top Gun jokes.
No. So it is a top example. It's a really good example of that particular bike.
Would it get you a date with Kelly McGillis, you think, during the height of her awesomeness?
Potentially. The turbo one would have done. The thing is, people who couldn't afford the turbo one just got the normally aspirated 750, and that was still way cooler than it would have been.
It's a good-looking bike, isn't it? So, I mean, this is what I mean about these bikes. Even if you never have had a bike license and it's something you're thinking about getting at a later date, this is $2 to $3 grand estimate.
Yeah.
For what I think is an exceptionally cool bike.
Yeah.
Just buy something like this and tuck it away. I mean, I don't know the bike market, but you could not lose $3 grand, could you? You couldn't.
No, absolutely not. No.
If you just took that away and looked after it and polished it and looked and started it every now and then.
Yeah, this has got to the point now where this is now appreciating as well. The turbo ones obviously appreciated massively because of what they were.
Yeah.
But this has got to the point where this is appreciating, and I mean,
And are the turbo prices pulling up the normally aspirated bikes?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And as Elliot's getting close-ups there, you can see how good it is as well.
And it's a tidy bike.
It's pretty much an original bike as well. It's about 90% original.
30,000 miles, that's all it's done.
Yeah.
So you could be like Tom Cruise.
Yeah, potentially, if I was a bit smaller.
Right, the Suzuki Bandit.
There we go.
So what can you tell me about this beautiful bike, other than the fact it's only done 5,000 miles?
4, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got no reserve.
There's no reserve. Crazy. I had a lot of interest in this bike.
But we should talk about the psychology, because quite a few vendors put bikes in with no reserve, and actually it sounds mental, particularly on such a nice bike as this. There's something very clever about doing that, isn't there? Because people in the room and people online kind of reassure each other, don't they? And then the bike will trot up quicker than you think.
It certainly does.
And funnily enough, no reserve lots often fetch more money than reserve lots, don't they? Because people they set their price.
Yeah, and that's really hard to get across sometimes when you tell someone, you bring your bike in at no reserve, they think, oh, that's crazy. But actually, the idea of the auction is to generate interest.
Yeah.
The more interest that's gained, the more bidders we have on the day, and the better your bid up is. And that's living proof of it, because we're already getting a lot of interest.
Well, we've had quite a few calls on it, haven't we?
And it's already got bids on it as well.
Ah, you see.
So it's already got pre-bids on it.
There's method in our madness. Because there's nothing like the reassurance of somebody next to you in the room saying it's worth £100 less than you think it is, to think, you know what, I'll do another bid, because
100%.
You're not an idiot, are you?
Yeah, and I mean, that bike, looking at the condition of it, it is really, really good. And that's actually sat in a warm, dry place for over 10 years now. So it just needs recommissioning, just needs a service and an MOT, and it's literally good to go.
And we can recommend people, can't we, locally, to take, if you're buying a bike for this auction and you've never had a bike before, this man knows everybody.
Everybody.
And as you can tell, he knows quite a lot about bikes. So if you need a bit of help finding out where to go, where to take it, you can help with that, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Come and see me on the day if you're going to buy anything, and I can point you in the right direction. It's not a problem.
Amazing. Now, Ducati Monster in yellow. That's an Eiffel, isn't it?
It is an Eiffel, yeah. It's a beautiful Italian Eiffel. And again, no reserve on this motorcycle.
14,500 miles, so it's not been anywhere, has it?
No, it's not been anywhere. It's a good solid bike, 800cc, and just like the Bandit next to it, it'd be great for someone who's maybe just starting out, or a commuter, or someone.
Because these are quite a comfy seating position on these, aren't they? A little bit taller. Yeah.
Wheelie machines, actually. Yeah. Extremely comfy and wheelie machines. Yeah. So yeah, cracking bike, no reserve again.
So what do you think that could go for? You know bike prices. What do you think that's realistically going to go across the block for on the day?
Well, it's worth around £3,000 to £3,500.
Again, that just seems like absolutely bargainous to me.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you're never going to lose on it. That's for sure.
This is the thing about a lot of bikes in this sale. I'd say almost all the bikes in this sale.
Yeah.
Just as a place to put your money, classic cars are very good, but obviously classic cars, you have to store them, they take a lot of room.
Yeah.
You have to get upkeep them, it takes quite a lot of cash to keep a classic car going. But bikes, even if you don't ride them, as long as you look after them, do an oil change, start them, run them, bring up temperature, they don't need a lot of love, do they really? As long as you squeeze in the brakes and...
Not really, and even if they're just for a collection, take the plugs out.
Yeah.
Turn it over once every 2 or 3 months, just to wet the internal bits.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to do. You're actually better off not starting them up, because then you don't get any condensation in the manifolds. So yeah, turn them over every couple of months, take the plugs out and leave them alone.
That's the thing, so if someone's thinking I've got £3.5 grand to put into a savings account or to invest in an ISA, you'd have a lot more fun putting it in that, wouldn't you? You'd probably outperform it, and you own a Ducati.
Yeah, of course, that's the thing, yeah. I've had a Ducati instead of putting it in the bank. Same with any appreciated classic.
That's man maths.
It makes perfect sense.
It does, it really does.
Yeah.
And then even if you lose a couple of £100, you own a Ducati.
That's true, and the chances of you losing a few £100 are
very low.
Yeah.
So I'd have a go at that. Well, let's look at some more Ducatis, because we love them. Tell me about this then, 999S.
Yeah,
that's a sexy bike, isn't it?
That is an extremely sexy bike, and as you can see as well, that looks like it's just rolled off the production line. Full service history on that one.
Yeah.
And it's
done 13,000, but it looks like they've done 13,000 in bubble wrap.
It does, yeah. It looks like it's done it on a dyno or something.
Yeah. It's immaculate, isn't it? Somebody has loved this to bits, haven't they?
Somebody's loved it to bits, yeah, and it's got a proper service with it.
It's got a spare belt.
So that is actually the cam belts that have just been taken out. It's just
just to prove that it's had the belt done.
Yeah. So every time I get a bike in, that's especially a Ducati, it's just had a cam belt change. I always ask for the old cam belts.
And what's that save the next owner having that service just done? Would you say?
A lot. Because. Probably about £400 or £500
really?
At least, yeah, with the cam belt change, because that's a major service. Of course, the cam belts on these, like everything else, they're not changed in miles; they're changed in time.
Yeah, because the rubber deteriorates.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's again £6,000 to £8,000. Not a huge amount of money for a very nice bike. What would that have bike been new?
It would have been about 16,000, something like that.
Great way to buy them, isn't it?
It's a fantastic way to buy it, and also, there was a lot of people who wasn't that fussed on the look. If you look at the front, you see the lights there.
I love that. That's the bit for me.
I personally do. I personally do like that. They kind of steered away from the old 916, 748, and went to that, and then they went back to redesigning. But despite that, bike did really, really well in World Superbike. Yeah, massively.
So what did that win?
World Superbike, British Superbike, a few times over. So it's a cracking bike. It's a great bit of kit. And as you can see, it looks like new.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
So I say, that's almost the best thing, isn't it? So I have a bike that's been used, because as we said, bike sitting isn't always the best thing.
Yeah.
Being used and looked after, that's a lovely one.
If somebody's loved it, you'll love it.
Yeah. Right, so the Honda VTR 1000,
Yeah.
talk to me about this bike.
Yeah, right, absolute beast. So this one's a 2001. And as you can see again, it looks like new.
It does, doesn't it?
But
20-odd-year-old bike, obviously been very well maintained. 21,000 miles as well.
Yeah. And Michael Dunlop had many of ours fun riding this particular bike and winning the TT on it. The good thing about this one, and the thing that makes it more rare than a normal SP1, is that the SP1 was the first off the production, so it's a carburettor engine.
Yeah.
It's not fuel injection. But they were going to call it the SPY until they decided they were going to make a few of them. Well, nobody knows why. So what they did was they produced this one. Nobody knows why it was called an SPY, but it was.
It just sounds cool because it looks like Spy, that's why.
A Spy?
Yeah.
An SP Spy?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you like. You can call
I like the frame design, I have to say. Yeah. That's a good looking Elevate.
So that one is classed as an SPY, and the reason for that is that it was one of the first 100 off the production line, which makes it a little bit more rare, and more rare than any of the SP sort of range. So it's proper collector's bike, that.
So what's the hot period? So in cars at the moment, we're having a real sort of boom period, 80s and 90s stuff particularly. So 80s is super hot, the 90s is up and coming. But funny enough, some of the early naughty stuff is starting to get very hot ticket, particularly if you've got a sporting heritage. So I would imagine to a car guy, the equivalent of this is like buying a noughties Impreza, anything that's either homologation or competition proof.
Yeah, you'd be looking at kind of P1 or something like that. Yeah,
and they're starting to be worth enormous amounts of money. So is it a very similar thing in the bike market, where if you're buying the right 90s and naughty stuff, it's about to go stratospheric?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly the same, to be honest with you. Especially if it's stuff like that that is like not potentially homologation, but quite rare. Then I mean, again, that is an appreciating collector's classic, and whatever money you spend, you ain't going to lose it.
But that's 79 grand, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
estimate.
Right, yeah.
That just seems like a lot of bike for the money to me.
It is, and also we've got it from a gentleman who knows his stuff about bikes, and he's given us a really, really sensible estimate on it, so we're expecting good things.
That could be out the door. That's going to be in a new garage by next week.
I would like to think so. And hopefully see in the open road and not in a collection.
Yeah, it's too long to see them used. Now, 996 SPS is a very nice bike.
Yeah.
This is nice, isn't it? Because we were talking about this bike earlier. Again, really beautiful bike.
Yeah.
What's nice about this? It's been enjoyed, hasn't it? It's been used.
It has, yeah.
And therefore, it's not a concourse bike, but for that reason, you'd want to go out and ride it, wouldn't you?
Exactly, yeah. And the estimate reflects that as well, because that has got a really good estimate on it.
Because this is 17 to 19, and if that were a concourse, what would that be?
23, 24.
Yeah. So you save yourself several thousand and get a bike you can actually get out and use.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if you were to wish to, you could buy this. You could put £1,000 into it.
Yeah.
And then you could be quids in, or you could leave it in the collection. And again, you're not going to lose any cash on it. The good thing about this bike is the 996 is a very rare bike.
How many did they make? Rough guess. Go on. Put you on the spot now.
2,500.
Very good.
Okay, so but the last 200 to 250 off the production line was classed as the FN2 model, and they called it the FN2 model because they were going to put full Ollins on the 998, which is its predecessor.
Yeah.
And what they did was they had a load of Ollins, and they put it on the last on the production line of the 996. So that's a particularly rare bike because it's full Ollins, and it's an FN2. So again,
potential future investment. A lot of these bikes are kind of just at the cusp of about to be good things, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's an investment you can ride, you can enjoy, you can have it looking beautiful in your garage.
Yeah.
Bikes score on so many levels, don't they?
Yeah, that's it.
So the 1991 Honda NSR 250.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful bike.
This is my personal favourite that we've got in.
Tell me, other than the fact it looks absolutely drop dead gorgeous, why is this one that we should all be bidding on the 25th?
So basically, this is not only just an NSR 250, which is like hen's teeth anyway.
Yeah.
But it's a SP model, which is a sports production. So you get uprated, fully adjustable rear suspension, upside down forks, steering damper, and you also get a close ratio gearbox and a dry racing clutch on this bike as well. Yeah.
So what's it like to ride? Is it an easy bike to ride?
It's a really easy bike to ride. The pickup on it's incredible for a 250.
Yeah.
It's somewhat similar to a 600cc.
Because it's a big bike for 250 as well, isn't it?
It is a big bike for a 250, yeah.
I love the kind of the proper racing seat on the back.
Yeah.
It really just looked the business.
It's so surprising though when you put these on a track against a modern 600.
Yeah.
These really do hold their own. You know, obviously you get out off on the straights, but
in the corners you get it back.
But yeah, when you're on the brakes, pivoting into the apex, this holds its own, and you can whip past people on these. They're fantastic. Way before the time.
Again, you can't believe that's the age it is, can you? What a beautiful bike. No. That's had a very expensive paint job as well, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. It's been to Dream Machine, that one.
And that's not cheap, is it?
No, it's probably been about £3,000 paint job on it at some point. But I mean, just look at that livery as well.
Yeah.
So not only is it a rare bike in an SP, which is rare, but it's in a Pentax livery as well, which you just don't see, and I think it looks fabulous.
So that's good. So that one will be 10.5 to 13.5. Right, 1986 Suzuki RG500 Gamma. This to me, I just think these are one of the best looking bikes ever.
Yeah.
I just love the way these sit. Talk to me about this bike, because this is beautiful, isn't it? It's 30,000 kilometres on this one. 30,000
kilometres, yeah, and you could never tell. I think you'll agree on that.
Mate, it's mint.
So the first thing to note about this bike is that anyone who knows anything about two-strokes and rebuilding two-strokes, especially these Suzuki RG500s, is there's a gentleman called Stan Stevens who's well known.
Even I've heard of him.
You have?
Yeah.
Well, there you go, and that's how big he is. So this bike has had a full nut and bolt rebuild, engine and crank rebuild.
And when was that done?
It was done a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and since the complete rebuild, it's only done 300 kilometres.
So you're basically buying a brand new bike, aren't you? Pretty much.
Pretty much,
Put together with as much love as it would have been done in Japan, if not more.
Yeah, and as you can see as well, that's had a rather expensive paint job as well.
Yeah.
So that's a full nut and bolt rebuild. And took that out for a ride. If you look on the website, you can see me go for a ride in it. I took it for a bit of a longer ride, and it works perfectly. It runs like a dream, really smooth.
12 months MOT on it as well, ready to go. It's got brand new period correct tyres if you're into the details of the bike, so that's done as well. Now, obviously, we're getting to the bikes like this, they're not cheap, are they? That's 21 to 25 estimate on that. And I think we've had quite a lot of calls on that one, haven't we, to be fair?
We have, we've had a lot of interest for this motorcycle, mainly because of what it is, the nature of what it is, the fact it was rebuilt.
Stan the Man's been on it.
Stan the Man has been all over it, and it's MOT'd fresh, it's serviced fresh, so it just needs a new owner.
Yeah.
What more do you want?
Well, just 26 grand. Yeah, so I can buy it. So the 85 Yamaha RD500 LC, that's another pretty bike. See, this 80s, early 90s aesthetic, this is very much my cup of tea.
Yeah.
These are the kind of things I'd like to have lying around the office if I had the wherewithal to do
absolutely, it.
Absolutely, So liquid cooled these on a very pretty bike, these.
Yeah, that's it. The thing that does it for me with this one is that unlike the other two bikes we just spoke about, that hasn't had any work done.
So this is literally out of the box, unrestored, but it's concours, isn't it?
And that's right, yeah.
You can't normally put those words in the same sentence, can you?
Not usually, no. And not to that standard, especially. And again, we've had that out running. Runs like an absolute dream.
Because we were talking earlier, weren't we, where the kick here is, you can just see, like I guess they all do, where the kick goes past. That's obviously added that, and I love the fact it's not restored it, because that to me just shows that's kind of careworn, we'd call that in the car trade.
Yeah,
just literally,
exactly.
It's just doing what it does. It just catches the frame, and it's all part of the story of the bike, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the collector that owns this motorcycle is also an ex-professional rider, and he's got his head screwed on and knows that actually it's better to potentially not restore that and start putting paint on a frame. And just leave it as it is. So
because that's true. We use the word time warp sparingly in this business because you can't really ever get a time warp machine. That's a time warp machine, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's going back in time to 85. You can't believe that's lasted that long in that condition, can you?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's had an easy life.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the tank and everything, you can see that it's original paint, but it's also absolutely fantastic. And once again, it's, you know, all that bike needs is a service. It hasn't got an MOT, but it is fully MOT worthy.
It won't be long before it's MOT exempt. Do bikes get MOT exempt to 40 years? Like cars do?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 40 years.
So you're only talking 2 years. You haven't got to get one anyway.
That's right. Yeah. So you can buy it, put it in your shed for 2 years, and then it's worth more.
Exactly.
And then you can ride it if you want for free.
I love it. Yeah. I remember these back in the day. I remember there was a kid on our road had one of these.
Yeah.
This Yamaha 1982 RD350LC.
Yep.
Again, really handsome, well-proportioned bike, that, isn't it?
Fantastic.
Very much of its time.
It is very much of its time. And just to echo what I said before about a very sensible gentleman that supplied it, it was supplied by the same guy as the last bike, which was the RD500.
It's a discerning chap, I would say.
Extremely, yeah. I mean, you can tell he's very particular about his motorcycles. And this one is 100% restoration, as you can see.
But God, it's perfect, isn't it?
It is, yeah. 19,000 miles, UK spec bike. And completely nut and bolt restored to a great standard. And you can see the level of the paintwork that's on it as well.
It's next level, isn't it?
It wasn't a cheap paint job.
But it just amazes me how much money people are spending restoring these bikes and the standard they're getting done to.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine this, but there are probably a lot of people watching this video thinking, God, either I had one of those when I was a younger man, lady, or they'd like another one again. Or this was the bike they really wanted but couldn't quite get.
Well, that's it. You wear that a lot. A chap came in earlier on today and sort of said, "Oh, I wish I'd kept hold of mine. I sold mine for 800 quid." But there you go. Such is life.
I know. Yeah. That's the thing. If we'd kept them on, we'd all be like Richie, wouldn't we? But we're going back to the 70s now. So we're going to this little tiny Yamaha TY80.
Yeah.
So we're going into the miniature bike section of the sale now.
We are, the mini bikes, yeah. So, great thing about this bike, just take a look at that. Elliot's getting right in there. And once again, no reserve.
I know, no reserve.
Fantastic.
But again, someone has spent a fortune restoring this, haven't they?
They certainly have, yeah. It's non-commissioned, this one.
Okay.
So this one's, the gentleman that owns it, that's sat in his house as effectively an ornament. But all it needs to get going is a spark plug, some oil, and probably a clean out of the carb, and you've got a fully functioning bike.
Well, it's an air-cooled two-stroke. It's not going to be a lot of moving parts, is it?
No, not really, no. Like a little clock.
Now, this is quite small, this bike. I like this very much, but I don't think I'm going to fit on it.
I think it might be a bit too small for you, actually.
So the Honda Z50R?
Yep.
So, I mean, it has a big seat. You could ride that as a paddock bike. We're sort of getting into the realms of really great sort of paddock bikes. And
yeah, so it was basically, it's designed for kids that want to get into crosser riding. 50 cc's, runs quite well. Runs better than the motor actually looks. Just needs a bit of a clean up.
It's a cool bike, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and a good reserve on it. 2 to 3 thousand is the estimate. And you see these going in a similar sort of state for around 4 to 5,000.
So if you've got a few weekends to spend on it,
absolutely,
you could polish and paint a few quid into that, couldn't you?
Yeah, and that's not going to take you much, is it, to do that?
No.
Let's be honest.
Sticking with Hondas, 87 Honda, this is cool.
The Dax.
I really would like to own this. This to me, because actually, even if you're a big lad, because you can sit on the pillion seat, can't you?
Yeah, you certainly can.
This is surprisingly rideable for a big lad, this, isn't it?
You're going to give us a demonstration?
No, because I'll probably fall off. So again, this has been restored and someone spent a lot of money putting this back together.
Yeah, so...
What's the history of this model then? Because this is groovy. I love pressed frame bikes, I really do.
Yeah, it is cool. So the history of it then, this will surprise you a little bit.
Go on.
This was actually built for women who live in China, who are doing the daily commutes, but also live outside of the city. So if you look, it's got slightly rough tyres on it. And it's actually a cross between a mini bike and a cross bike, a motocross bike.
So you can do off-roading with this, although it's probably a bit too nice to do that now.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't want to.
But
that's what it was designed. That's what
you might split your trousers for one.
Yeah, well, I quite often do. So basically, it was designed for. If you live in the hills, you can commute through the hills off-road into the inner city, and then you can also drop off your vegetables or whatever it is that they
you might squash your vegetables on that, I think. Especially if you take it off-road.
There's a big potential for that there.
But I would love that as a paddock bike. I can just imagine that. Snetterton, you know, you go out your motorhome, don't you?
Yeah.
Go down, just get your bits and bobs from the shop, come back, make sure the lads have got some pasties, keep them working.
That's it,
That's mega.
And how cool would you look doing it as well?
So cool. All right, Chappie, tell me about your Chappie.
So Chappie, yeah, fantastic bike. You've probably seen a video of me riding around on this one
funny.
like a loony. So the good thing about this bike is that it was built in 1988, and then in 1989 it was taken off the road.
It's done 120 miles, this bike,
It did 120 miles in its first year of its young life.
Yeah.
And then it's done nothing since.
So it's just been stuck in a collection somewhere?
It's been stuck in a collection, and as you can see on the other side of the engine there, it's still actually got the Perspex sticker, the engine cover.
That's crazy.
It's still stuck on there.
So this is the thing. So were this a car, it's one of those things you've got to almost keep in a collection, because if you ride it anything other than sparingly, you get a knack of the value, I guess, aren't you? You've got to almost buy it to stash it, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I felt guilty on one of the videos because I put a mile on it.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
But you can't sell it if you can't endorse it, can you? That's
exactly. Well, that's the thing. So yeah,
we ride them all if we can, and we're allowed to. We ride them all so that you know that they're proper. Yeah. But again, they're not a dear thing. 2 to 3 grand. You could have that sticking in the corner of your in your shed, looking cool.
That's it. On the video, I kind of described it as a new, old 1988 motorcycle, and that's basically exactly what it is. You can even still see the wrapping still.
Oh no, it's crazy. Look, can you see that? Look, it's still got all the plastic on the back of the mirror.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I can't imagine it was that much cheaper than that when it was new, was it?
I couldn't tell you how much it was when it was new.
Can't remember back then.
No. But,
what do you think about heavy metal bands? Are you into heavy metal bands?
Only if it's Saxon.
Yeah, they're the best. You should play some Saxon gently underneath this bit of the video.
Yeah.
Obviously without infringing YouTube terms and conditions.
I'm sure they wouldn't mind.
No, they won't mind. Because this is the motorbike. Appeared on stage many, many times. Now I do love a Goldwing. It's full cheese, isn't it, Goldwing?
It is full cheese.
And this takes full cheese to the next level, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yeah.
This, you need to really have sort of permed, long mullet hair with this, don't you?
Yeah. Which I used to have, believe it or not.
I can believe that.
Yeah. That's hard to imagine.
So it's a Goldwing owned by Biff Bifford, of course.
Yeah, of course, lead singer of Saxon.
And it's been on album covers, it's been on their stage shows. So if you are into heavy metal, British heavy metal, this bike will mean something to you. Yeah. Well, you can see, they're a massive metal rock band, and you've got Strong Arm of the Law there on the side of the tank. And that was actually the design of this bike, which was their album that came out in 1984. Have you got it?
I haven't got it personally, no, but I am going to put it on order.
We should play a bit like during the sale, don't you reckon? When this is going on, we should have a bit of that. But the paintwork is exceptional. It's pearl white base, isn't it? And then all these, I guess, hand-painted graphics on the top.
It is such a fantastic bike, and to be honest, when I saw it was up for sale, I mired the owner for quite a few weeks to give it to us. Yeah, because
in your celebrity database.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just thought, wow. I just want to get it in because it is a really cool bike.
But the crazy thing is, despite everything we just said, so proper English rock legend, beautiful condition bike, 54,000 miles,
fantastic restoration.
Been in Kerrang magazine, it's been restored.
Yeah, been on stage.
Everything. 4.5 to 5.5 grand.
I know.
You can't imagine if that was the car equivalent of that.
Yeah.
30 grand, 40 grand, isn't it?
It's the epitome of a lot of bike for not a lot of money, I'd say.
I think if you're a bike collector, you want that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
1979 Yamaha. Talk to me about this. So back to some cool crosses, full-size crosses now.
Yeah.
This is a nice looking bike. Mostly original as well, isn't it?
It's pretty much all there, yeah. It's had a bit of paint work done to it. The motor's been stripped, I imagine, a few times and put back together. But in terms of what I really like about this sort of genre of bike and what they've done with it is that you can actually use it.
Yeah.
It's from the 70s, but it's physically still here. You can have a drool over it, but you can use it.
Actually, get out and do some wheelies.
Yeah,
absolutely. A lot of wheelies.
Well, that'll definitely do the job.
And the BSA Bantam from 1966.
Yeah.
It was a great year for Britain, 1966.
It certainly was, yeah.
And this was, of course, what you would have been riding if you had a few quid.
Yeah.
Why are these so special?
The BSA Bantam's it's an iconic machine, isn't it? And this particular one is a little bit of a mismatch.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got, as you can see on the back there, it's got an upgraded carburettor with an air filter on it. And to be fair, that does make the motor run quite a bit more. Yeah, it's a bit of an improvement. You can see on the handlebars.
Because I don't mind, and certainly in the car world, I don't mind if someone's done a mod that makes it work better.
Yeah.
I can live with that because originality is wonderful, but actually you want to be able to use it, don't you?
Yeah, essentially, yeah, and that's a usable bike, isn't it? And you can see on the handlebars there as well that you've got some upgraded electrics in terms of the throttle, brake, starting button, and that one's also had a speedo put on it as well.
So actually, again, really usable. You could ride that on the road, actually know what speed you're doing.
Yeah.
actually indicate probably and things like that.
Yeah, well, it's not getting indicators on it. You could stick your arm on your foot if you wanted to. And again, no reserve on that one.
So good. Yeah. And this, another Yamaha?
Yep.
The TY?
So this one out of the TYs has been the most popular so far. And we've had quite a few bids on this one already. A lot of interest over the phone and via email. And
fully road legal, that one, isn't it?
So it's fully road legal. Yeah, it is a crosser obviously, but it's fully road legal. Obviously tax exempt, MOT exempt, and it runs like a dream. So you can stick it in your collection, or you can take it out and have a blast on it. And
do you think a bike to that standard, sort of in that condition, people would actually use it for what it's meant to be used for, or do you think those days are gone for that bike now?
Not really, because the previous owners actually had some really good use out of this bike. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, he really has. It's just that he's well maintained it, and he's given it a good bougie before it's come in. Yeah. But it's been used. I've started it. It runs perfectly.
Well, it's probably why it runs perfectly, isn't it? Because he's been using it.
Of course. Yeah.
And let's go to the other end of the scale, the bike that's never ever been used, which is this one, and we'll finish the video with this absolute gem. Now, how on earth did you find this? I know you've got some good bike people in your book, but this is ridiculous.
So this is insane. I've been around motorcycles for a long time. You know, I've had a dealership and been in the bike trade for a long time. And I've actually seen this motorcycle previously a few years ago.
Because you've coveted this for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I went down to a friend of mine who had it in his dealership. He got in contact with the owner. And managed to twist his arm into letting us have it here, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not just saying that because it's here, but this is the best H2C I've ever seen. You know, 300 miles on the clock. It's had some retro work in terms of paint and a few other things, using 100% of its own integrity.
Yeah, so it's all original parts. I mean, the paint is sensational, isn't it?
It's
Whoever's done that.
Yeah.
Who has done that? Because that's remarkable.
I'm not exactly sure who's done it. I'm thinking it could be Dream Machine or something.
Yeah. Somebody spent a lot of cash on that, haven't they?
They've spent a lot of money on it, yeah. But let's be honest, the entire bike is just sensational. It is, as an example, it's fantastic. And if you have a look on the website, you can hear a video of it running. Yeah. And it's just really, really smooth.
Because there's the phrase museum quality, that's museum quality, isn't it?
Oh, 100%, yeah. Yeah, I think one day, you know, if nothing drastic happens to this, you know, that's where this will end up. But I mean, it's a 1975 motorcycle with an engine that still needs bedding in.
It's crazy.
It looks like this.
300 miles.
And it's got an MOT, and it's been serviced. Yeah. And it's ready to go. It's crazy. And
so
also,
would you, if you were the collector that bought this bike, the discerning collector, first of all, what do you think it would go for? What do you think that's going to make on the day?
That should do 20 grand plus easy.
What a thing to own.
Easy, yeah, what a thing to own. And also, the estimate on it as well is 18 to 19.
Because I mean, what would it cost you to that standard, if you just found a normal one that had loads of use and mileage and you tried to restore it to that standard? Yeah. What would a restored bike cost to put together? Wow. A restored bike probably wouldn't be far off that, would it? Not to it, probably.
It'd probably cost you about 7,000 to 10,000 at least to restore it.
Plus you've got to buy the bike.
And you've got to find one that's got its own classic integrity. And it's not a mismatch of everything else.
But that's the where that is just an unused, untouched with a little bit of light resto. That's the one you want, isn't it?
It is spectacular. It's absolutely beautiful. And as far as that genre of bike's concerned, you know, it's the bike of the show, I think.
So there you go. If you've seen anything you like, don't make sure you've registered to bid. Come and see us on the day on the 25th in the room. Like and subscribe to these videos to see many more. And if you can, go on the website and have a look. Join us next time for even more bikes. Thanks, Jimmy.
See you soon.